All right, let's get started. Why am I doing this? I, as you know, spend a lot of time into pod world. I'm on mic for a lot of shows. I'm off mic for even more shows. I spend 7 days a week working on pods. But what do I do outside of that? Probably think anything but. Wrong. I hang out with a bunch of podcast people. Most of my friends work in podcast. And I love talking shop with them. It's fun hearing about the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations that they go through. And sometimes you just got to vent, get some stress off you, get some steam off you, get some steam off you. And I think that's always helpful. But one of the things I like about it is you kind of learn from those conversations about like what to and what not to do. And you grow a lot, I think, from your mistakes. That is what today's seminar is about. A lot of mistakes I've made. This was very easy to do. I've worked in podcast, if you don't know. I've worked in podcast for 8 years. Started in 2015. 2 weeks ago, I think. I started in 2015. Started as an intern at a podcast company called Earwolf. I was an intern for a year. And 6 months into that, I got like a part-time job as a publisher, writing episode descriptions for some of the shows. 6 months after that, I interviewed for a full-time position as the production coordinator / studio manager. Was that for a year. Was promoted to producer, worked as a producer for 3.5 years, and then was a senior producer. So I was at Earwolf for a total of 5 years before quitting to be a freelance producer. Fortunate enough to work with a bunch of extremely talented people. Some who are in the chat right now. And basically take the skills that I've learned and do it independently. It's hard, it's challenging. You lose the backboard of support that you've had. But I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't learn a lot. And I don't know about you all, but personally, the mistakes stick with me so much more than the achievements, which is not a good thing, by the way. So this was pretty easy. I have spent the last 2 weeks making a list of all the mistakes I've made, and I found a lot of patterns. Some of which I think are kind of, I don't want to say universal, but I don't imagine every single person in the chat right now, or whoever's watching this on YouTube later, I don't imagine that all of you work in podcast. And so I think some of these things that I've learned are applicable to any job. And that's kind of what I wanted to do as well with this 4-week seminar. Like, of course, it's podcast specific, but I do think a lot of the things that I've learned can be applied to a lot of jobs. Basically, what I'm saying is, like, if you're watching this and you're a doctor, we're actually like the same guy. And we probably have a lot in common. And that's really cool for us. And I'm kind of like the doctor too, and you're like the pod guy. So if you're watching this and you're a doctor, you're probably nodding along, going like, yeah, this all tracks. So let's get started. I made a Canva slideshow, and the template that I found is called Water Activities for Toddler. I really liked this. I didn't want to change any of the illustrations or words at all, but I kind of feel like what I do as a podcast producer is basically being the Water Activities for Toddler. That's my job, so this felt like the perfect template. I did not remove any of the watermarks because I refuse to pay for this stuff. But like I said, today we're going to be talking about the mistakes I've made in podcasting. So just kind of generally speaking, just to kind of go over the outline for today specifically, I'm going to talk about 3 sort of general mistakes that I've made. And there's a lot of different examples of it, but I think they can be summed up into these 3 sort of general ideas. Then I will go into pod-specific mistakes. And then, because I don't want the entire thing to be just, here's everything I've done wrong, goodbye. I do want to talk about a few things that I think I do okay, that I excel at. So I kind of want to end on a little bit of a positive note. That part was harder for me than the 45 mistakes that I came up with in 90 seconds. Writing 3 things down that I'm good at took days. And then after that, to kind of wrap things up, I'd like to end each seminar. I'm doing this every Thursday this month. I'd like to end each seminar with a little bit of a Q&A. So if you want to completely tune out for the next 50 minutes, realistically, and come back then with a few questions, I'm more than okay with that. I think that will be kind of fun because I can answer some specific questions people have, and we can kind of go from there. So every mistake I've made in podcasting, given that I want to keep this around an hour, realistically a little over an hour, the bandwidths that Twitch has, the limitations that YouTube has, the limitations that you as a human being want to live the rest of your life, I thought it would be wise to keep this, around an hour. That being said, I kind of need to address the elephant in the room. It's by far the biggest mistake I've made. I've been stressing about talking about this literally since the moment I realized I was going to do this seminar. It's also stressful to do this live, because each time I've practiced it, I have said something that I've regret. So I'm a little nervous about that. And we'll see how this goes. But yep, I mean, of course, I have to address the elephant in the room. Biggest mistake probably for me has been working for Sean Clements and Hayes. No, it is not asking for help. This is, I got to move my little camera, guys, blocking some of this stuff. This is a mistake I've made a lot, I think, early in my career. I feel like I make it less and less now, because I'm better at being honest with myself. I think starting the job at Earwolf, I definitely felt like a fraud. I was right out of college. Everyone else that worked there had a lot more experience than I did. And so there definitely was a factor of, fake it till you make it. and I think that helps a lot. However, a thing that I would come up against semi-regularly was faking it when I should be making it. I would be handed a task and would be like, yep, no problem, you got it. And then I would spend like way too long trying to figure it out. Where at a certain point, like in hindsight, instead of spending 4 or 5 hours on a thing, spending like 15, 20 minutes on it instead, and then approaching the engineer, the producer, the host, my boss, and saying like, hey, I think I need some help with this. So this is kind of a confidence thing that I still struggle with sometimes, but I struggled with it a lot my first few years in podcasting. Was I didn't want to be perceived as the person who needed help all the time. However, there's a line for that. And then the opposite issue can occur where it's better to eventually just ask for help and move on because your time is valuable. And I think that's the thing that it took me a long time to learn, was that like the sooner I could get something done, the sooner I could move on to the next thing, the next big project or idea, etc. And yeah, the other thing I think about with not asking for help is a word I don't really like because it's overused and quite an exhausted word in Los Angeles and the entertainment industry, which is collaboration. You want to collaborate? It's a very annoying word. That being said, I think it's a similar thing of like being self-aware enough to know when you are surrounded by talented people. And even if you're like a shy, quiet person, it's important to, get out of your comfort zone and spend time with these people so that you can learn what they do. I was very intimidated by all of the engineers at Earwolf because they truly could speak their own language. I had no idea how to engineer or edit a show. I didn't know what Pro Tools was. I didn't know how to anything about recording at all. I've done like a few things about like on GarageBand. So all of these extremely talented engineers, I was like, I will never know how to do that. And then slowly over time, I was just able to like sit next to them and learn how to use the software. And then I got more comfortable editing, which feels like less pressure than recording because it's not live. And then after I got more comfortable with editing, I was able to like sit in on recordings specifically with the engineer and then watch how they worked, watch how they cooked. And eventually I felt comfortable enough where when an engineer wasn't able to come in and like the founder of the company needed to record ads or an episode or something, at first I absolutely was having a full-on meltdown on Slack and text messages and stuff, afraid I was going to mess up anything. But slowly, time after time, I got more comfortable with it, and I still am intimidated by recording, but collaborating with like the engineers and the producers and the production team in general, like helped me build my confidence, so that when I had to do it by myself, I wasn't freaking out as much, which helped a lot. It's hard to do if you're not comfortable, especially like going up to someone being like, can you show me how you do your job? I personally am afraid it might come off as like insulting too, of like, oh, you think you can just do my job? I have like, friends from back home that are like, or, whoever are like, we should work together. Show me how to do your thing, man. I can do it. You just teach me over the weekend. And it's pretty easy to be like, fuck you. But, obviously it's a different situation. So, I feel like specifically for me, it was easy to not ask for help, both when I was handed things, whether it be something we'll talk about later, which is like scheduling issues, both recording issues, if it was producing things like pitching ideas, or booking guests, or if it was on the engineering, the audio side of recording, editing, or if it was the sales side with the ads, the marketing side with the promotion. At a certain point, you kind of just have to be like, look, man, can you help me out? So it's a thing that I still mess up to this day. Asking for help is intimidating. You're kind of admitting, I want to call it a weakness, but at a certain point, not asking for help is a weakness. It is a mistake. And being honest with yourself, the sooner you can do it, the easier everything will be, I think. That's kind of my first big mistake that comes to mind. Let's see. What was the second one that I wrote? Kind of a more general one. Being annoying. This was easy for me. I kind of forgot what some of these were. Man, I still am annoying, to be honest. I think I'm less annoying. I'm sure a lot of people would beg to differ. Here's my thoughts on being annoying, being impatient. My mentality for it, especially early in my career, was I was being annoying and I was being impatient about good things. I was trying to help grow the show. The easiest example that comes to mind is just following up with everybody all the time. And so like asking someone something and then them saying yes, and then like a couple days later checking in, and then a couple hours later checking in. Just kind of the constant checking in. Like what I didn't realize about it is at a certain point, it's like insulting, and it's selfish. And it's a thing that I don't think I realized that I was doing, because I truly just viewed it as like, well, I'm trying to help the show, so like, who cares? That's not a good mentality to be in. I know that what I'm talking about is, for me, in my experience, is podcast specific, but I do have friends that work in other fields that have similar experiences of coworkers, or maybe them themselves, being difficult in a way that it's well-intended, their heart is in the right place, but it's annoying and at a certain point insulting. So I think I've been trying to be a lot better about patience in general. It's very hard for me. I have a lot of anxiety all the time. And so for me, a minute, an hour always feels like a minute. Is that the right way? Is that the right direction? Everything just feels so much longer than it needs to be. And, yoga, meditation, and some deep breathing and stuff, that all helps. Just some general perspective always helps. But something that's kind of helped me with not being so annoying is putting myself in the shoes of the person that I'm talking to. I'm going to keep coming back to engineers, I guess. I don't know. And producers, that's probably the people I've had the most experience with. and I guest host. Those are probably the big three. Just putting myself in their perspective of, let's take when I worked at Earwolf, constantly following up with people, my coworkers. They too have many other shows that they work on. And so it's kind of like, trying to be better about, like, maybe they're busy with all the other things they work on. Maybe they're not. Maybe they just like want a break because they're tired. And same with hosts. Like maybe they're they have another job that they're working on, or a family, or anything else outside of the podcast. And so I think patience and consideration for others helps me a lot with a mistake that I made a lot early in my career, and then I would like to think less and less over the last few years, is just like slowing down and relaxing. And it makes a big difference, because really the eye-opening experience for me with this, the biggest eye-opening experience, was when I worked with someone I've worked with a few people, and in many jobs as well, that it was exactly like this. And I had two immediate thoughts: holy shit, this is really annoying. And then, holy shit, this is just like me. So sometimes you kind of have to see the behavior from another person to realize, like, oh, wait, I do that. I got to stop doing that. I got to stop doing that as soon as possible. So, yeah. And you can tell that it's like a nice person and that their heart is in the right place, but it's hard. It's complicated. So I'm, just try to be, when you're frustrated with, like, response times or anything, just trying to put yourself in their shoes. And I think it helps a lot with the experience, I guess. That's kind of everything about me being annoying for nearly a decade. Okay, this is my third and final kind of general one, and then I'll get into more specific things after that. Whoops, clicked the wrong button. Let's see. Time management. This is, for me, the hardest. This is the one I struggle with the most. With like right now. I know these sounds so extremely vague in general, but most of podcasting, in my experience, is scheduling and time management. It's a little easier with seasonal shows because hopefully you haven't like announced when the show's coming out before you've recorded stuff, so you kind of have some more flexibility. It makes the whole experience way less stressful, which is great. Weekly shows are tough. All shows are tough, frankly, but it can be very easy with a weekly show. To stuff happens, and you don't have availability to record, and it kind of like what I was saying before, then you kind of walk this line of being impatient because you want to record because the show's supposed to come out, but you want to also be considerate of other people's times. I'm going to talk about this in two ways. Just of the two experiences, obviously, is myself and the people I work with or have worked with as well. Once I started to look big picture down the line, it made scheduling substantially easier for myself and for the people I work with, I'd like to think. Finding times when people are available and available to record. I don't know. I don't really know how to word this. The scheduling part is challenging, but basically the most recent experience I've had with this is 6 months ago. I started every Sunday writing out a extremely detailed bullet point to-do list of my entire week. Here's every show I'm going to record. Here's every show I'm going to edit. Here's every sort of podcast thing I'm going to do this week. Because I keep saying early in my career, but that's honestly probably where I made the most amount of mistakes, was just kind of figuring it out and going with the flow, which is a good quality to have, but you can't kind of go with the flow with scheduling and time management. It's a thing that you should hopefully be, I don't want to say aggressive about, but it's a very important and challenging part of podcasting. I'll talk about it more next week as well, but if you are good at scheduling, like someone pointed out, the pre-production, the recording, the brainstorming, then the actual production, the recording, and then the post-production, you are significantly ahead of the curve. So that's kind of, from my experience, the time management side of it, the scheduling side. And then the other side of it is the host I work with. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about before, of being considerate of people's schedules, being easy to work with. You don't want the host that you work with to feel like you're their parents and they have to like confess their schedule. You want to have like a great, easygoing rapport with them. That being said, I don't know how I'm going to go through with this, but I've decided I might say one salacious thing each seminar. I wrote down one for this one. Let's see. Do we want to say this? Where did I write it down? Yep, here we go. I'm not ever going to name names in the seminar, just so you know. Because everyone I've worked with has been great. Truly, like I know it sounds like a general thing saying like everyone, but I haven't worked with like a bad host before, and that's extremely rare. So therefore I'm not going to shit talk anyone. But I will say this. I wrote this down. I've enjoyed working with every host I've been fortunate enough to produce, so I'm not going to start putting people on blast. However, I do think this next part is helpful to know. I've worked with 25 different podcast hosts. Of those 25, regarding scheduling specifically, one of the hosts has been excellent. 6 of them have been great. 10 of them have been fine. 7 of them need improvement, and 2 of them have been bad. Now, this sounds judgmental. It's not. I just put some people in what I think are accurate categories. Now, to give these people credit, and myself here, why am I giving myself credit here? I'll say this. All of these people have fluctuated in all of these positions. Everyone has moved. Sometimes people haven't been all of these categories. Like I said, most of the hosts that I've worked with have been fine or great. Some of them have been tough, but like I was saying before, people have fucking lives they live. And it's selfish to take things personally that have nothing to do with you. And we'll talk about this a little bit more next week. For most people, a podcast isn't their full-time job. So it's fine that some people are hard to schedule and that they don't respond. It's not ideal, but this isn't their full-time job. So again, it kind of keeps coming back to consideration for others. And I myself, why I was going to say giving myself credit, I have been all 5 of these positions. I have been amazing to work with scheduling. I have needed improvement, and I have straight up sucked. I get really embarrassed when I have like a multi following up thing coming to me, because that's a thing that I constantly have to say to people. So having it go my direction bums me out, because I know how much it bums me out when I have to do it week after week after week. So, this all being said, I just feel my point is everyone's schedules are all over the place. And if you are able to, like how I was talking about, kind of go with the flow, if you can work with these types of 25 different schedules, one person kind of consistently always responding immediately, this is when I'm available, or if they're not available, I'm not available this time, but I am available this time, always responding within 24 hours, or the other side of it, just never responding, impossible to get a hold of, making the job harder, the two ends of it. You have to be able to roll with both of them. And if you can't, those people, and this doesn't even, this is about hosts specifically, but truly all fields in podcasting. If you can't roll with it, the host isn't going to want to work with you. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but yeah, you have to be patient. And similarly, if you're not patient, if you ever have an off day, it's a huge double standard. You're being a huge hypocrite. So if I think people will be more patient with you if you're patient with them. That's not a controversial statement, but because so much of the job of podcasting is scheduling, I do it every day. Be patient with people, be supportive of people, and open to whatever they need, because hopefully they will be that way with you. It's like it's an easy way to have a long relationship with the show. I'm extremely grateful that some of the shows I've worked on have been for years. Big Grande was the first show I ever got to produce. I'm still making content with those guys, and they're so fucking cool and funny. And I know John's in the chat, and I'm not just trying to gas him up because I know he's watching, but those guys are so easy to work with, and it's great. We all help each other out. Gas me up, King. Truly. And it's been it's been a blast working with them, and I will keep working with them because of how supportive we've all been of each other. And when it feels like I understand that the job is the producer, the engineer, the editor, there is a natural sort of hierarchy. Obviously, you're working for the host. You're providing the production support of the host. But for me, a goal that I have is to work with people that feel like we're on an evil, Freudian slip, even playing field and even ground. And it makes me personally much more motivated to work on a show when I feel that sense of trust from the host. It makes it, most importantly, so much more fun. And I'm truly genuinely excited to work on those shows where I feel the sense of trust, the sense of support from the host. So yes, time management is a huge part of the job. People are all over the place. That's totally fine. And you have to be able to roll with it. And if you personally can hold yourself accountable, if you can hold yourself to a higher standard with your own scheduling, the job will be, you will notice, a lot easier. And there's already so many hard parts of the job. So finding the things that you can control, like your time, which is already very valuable, makes a huge difference. So those are kind of the three bigger things I've struggled with, the three sort of recurring patterns over the last 8 years. We can go back and kind of briefly recap, not that anyone asked. I am very nervous about this computer eventually just crapping out, but we'll see. Not asking for help, trying to do things by yourself. I'm saying this because I see some people enter late, and that's okay. So I'm going to say it for you. Not asking for help is a huge mistake I've made. Trying to just figure stuff out on my own, fully knowing that I'm fortunate enough to have extremely smart, talented people in my phone that I can ask. That being said, I don't want to just jump and ask people every single time I have a question. Try to figure out yourself for a little bit. Do some Googling, do some research, and then ask someone for help. Then ask someone who you think knows the answer. Be honest with yourself. Similarly, not asking for help. A big thing that I'm trying to be good about is collaborating, both not only with other shows, doing like guest crossover stuff or promo swaps, just working with extremely talented people, whether it be just recording a pilot, a test episode with someone, a limited series, a weekly show. Trying out, live stream stuff with people. Not only that, the collaborating of with shows, but really specifically people. Like, I think I'm definitely guilty of being stuck in my little LA comedy podcast bubble. I always really appreciate having conversations with people who are not in my bubble, who also work in podcasting, because more often than not, they have a completely different experience than I do. And they have their own really fascinating, not that mine are fascinating, but they have their own really fascinating struggles and success stories and things that they go through that are all things that I have no connection to. So it's fun. It's a thing I want to keep being good about. It's hard with the pandemic, obviously, but I want to try to go out of my way to get coffees and chat with people that work in podcasting and continue to learn, because I'm just in a little piece of the pie. There's a lot of really talented people out there, and I can learn a lot. So not asking for help. Being impatient, annoying. My heart was in the right place a lot of times, but I didn't realize I was just bothering people. Be considerate about other people's schedules and their time as well as your own. And it will make a big difference. Unfortunately, it's hard to tell when you're being annoying. Sometimes, though, you have an interesting experience where you work with annoying people and then you realize, wait a second, I do a lot of those things. I got to be careful about that. And be considerate. Think of others. Double check things. And then the last bigger recurring thing that I talked about was time management. Scheduling, I think, is one of the most challenging parts of podcasting. It's a big part of the job. Be forgiving and patient with the host that you work with. Things come up, life comes up. Unless they're kind of being, you'll know when you know. Sometimes it's like, hold on, that wasn't cool. We have to talk about that. But you're allowed to say that if you're forgiving. Because if there's a recurring issue, it needs to be brought up. Same with you. If you have a recurring issue, they should bring it up with you. Hold your own schedule to a higher standard. Try to make, I know this works for me. I'm not saying that other people need to do this. What was extremely helpful for me was making a weekly thorough to-do list. On the bottom of that to-do list that goes day by day with a handful of things I need to do each day, I have like kind of monthly things of like, follow back up with this person who said they're available in June, follow up with them. This person has a movie coming out in September. And so like I have not only my daily things for my weekly calendar, but on the bottom I have I always have like 5 or 6 things that I'm checking in on. Scheduling's tough. What's next? I don't really remember. Oh my gosh, I'm going so long. This is crazy. Sorry for rambling, and I hope you guys are enjoying this. Pod specific. I'll go through these kind of quick. I know there's a handful of podcasters in here. My guess is, though, more of you are just kind of interested to learn about the behind the scenes. I have 2 parts that are kind of pod specific mistakes that I make. The first one, a lot of these are like editing mistakes. You learn a lot as an editor. It changes your experience with everything, with conversation. You think about the way people talk differently and the flow of a conversation. That was unnecessarily existential. Sorry. A thing that I really just got better at like 6 months ago is, and I don't do this for all my shows, but I do it for a lot of them, is after I finish editing a show, I will go back and re-listen to it one more time. It's sometimes annoying because I just want to be done. I just edited the whole show. I don't want to have to go back and listen. I just did the work. But that one additional listen through, you more often than not will notice things. So some examples of this I have are specifically the thing I notice the most is I over edit. I will cut out a lot of which I'll talk about in a second, vocal fillers, dead air specifically. I'll do it top to bottom. Say it takes me like an hour and a half to finish editing the episode. Part of me, 2 years ago, I'd be like, all right, print, great. What I try to do now is, okay, great. Let me take 5 and relax for a minute and then come back and just listen to it top to bottom one more time. Almost every time I make, not a lot, like I would say 5 to 10 very small adjustments, but often the adjustment is just making it a little more natural. It's very rarely anything drastic. It's often I cut 2 things too tight together. You can hear the edit. The best editor, no one knows they did their job because the entire thing feels like a natural conversation. Specifically with what I do, which is primarily chat podcast and conversational podcast. In other types of genre, you really want to hear the editor because it's like, damn, good job. And what my goal is that no one hears the edits. Now, sometimes something needs to be cut out, and it's challenging. Ideally, you work with hosts who give good cuts. I'll just flag a challenging cut is when a host or anyone, frankly, wants an edit. To me, an easy edit is when it's from one person talking to another person talking. Having an edit where it's the same person talking, cutting to the person also talking, more often than not, you can hear those cuts. They just like have a different. I'm going backwards, hack gang. I'm gonna sit backwards in the chair. I'm gonna smoke a cig. We're a lot alike, a teacher and the student. I don't know. I'm getting granular. Doesn't really matter. Editing can be tough. Do the additional work. Listen to the episode one more time. Just hit spacebar, hit play, listen to it. If I'm a betting man, more often than not, you will notice a couple of things that you need to change. Cut the vocal fillers. You don't have to cut all of them. Cut it when it's a distracting amount, to be honest. Some people want them all cut. To me, sometimes it's more obvious when they're all cut. Most people talk, as you have heard me do for the last hour, most people talk with vocal fillers. Most people say, throughout a conversation. One of the benefits of podcasting is because it's recorded, you can go in and clean it up and make it feel a little bit more natural. But you don't have to go 100% overboard and make it sound unnaturally flawless. So there is a middle ground there. That's kind of a recurring thing throughout this whole seminar, both today and probably the whole month, is there's always a middle ground somewhere. Try to cut some, but not all. A lot of what I do when I'm re-listening is I can hear that I cut an and I'm trying to smooth that out. Last kind of editing mistake I make a lot is, this is a big advice. Excuse me. More edits does not equal better podcast. Please know that. It's, a lot of people think that, or they don't think they think it, but their actions think it. Some edits, more than okay. But please do not feel that over editing a show will make it sound good. More often than not, it makes it sound unnatural. And I'm specifically talking about what I do with conversational podcasts. It's obviously different for like NPR shows and stuff. But even with NPR shows, I mean, you can over edit a show. Unfortunately, it happens more often than you think. So just be mindful of cutting too much, because at a certain point, you might not hear it, but the listeners can. They might pick up how the flow of a conversation changes. Something I do is I'll cut dead air, and then to tighten things up, and then you listen back and it's like, oh, wow, it doesn't make sense that person was able to respond that wildly fast to that question. There are some extremely popular shows that are over edited, where if you were to print out the wavelength of the audio file, it would just look like one brick with no space at all. It's just question, answer, answer, question, answer, talk. There's no natural space between any of it. You can't even feel the person breathing. It doesn't make sense. Think about how a conversation sounds. How pregnant should the pause be? 8 months. Very pregnant. Milk it. Make it feel, whoa, okay. Milk it now. That's not what I meant. All right, let's move on, Kev. Not listening to enough shows outside of the ones I work on. Yeah, this is just a thing I need to be better about. It's easy to listen to, like, I don't have a lot of energy outside of work to listen to a lot of shows. There's like 5 that are kind of my recurring ones, and new ones will enter the rotation. But that's limiting, right? It's limiting to be a rock guitarist and only listen to rock. Get outside your bubble. Part 2, not having extra gear on hand. John Mackey watched me experience this a month ago. It was horrifying, and Ryan Rosenberg saved the day. We're all there to record an episode of the amazing new podcast, Exit 43. We're all sitting there. Right before I hit record, I asked John, can you talk into that mic a little bit more? He's talking to the mic. I switched the cables with Dan. Now Dan's mic sounds bad. I got a busted cable. Guess what? I didn't bring any extra gear at all. I didn't think to bring it because it was working fine the last few times we recorded. Fortunately, Ryan saved the day and said, oh, I got an extra one right here, man. I would have been I was already embarrassed, but I don't know what would have happened. I guess I would have had to drive home, get another cable, come back. It would have added 45 minutes. It would have ruined the day for sure. Always have extra gear on you if you record shows. And this also, I guess, applies to like producer. Always have extra ideas. Always have extra pitches. Always have extra guest suggestions. Don't ever show up not only empty-handed, but with only the exact amount that is needed to fulfill the show. Always have something in your back pocket. And it does make a difference. I'm not always flawless at this. I mean, I literally made this mistake like 3 weeks ago. But it was a mistake that I made that I'm like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to show up to a recording with only the exact amount of mics that I need, the exact amount of cables that I need, the exact amount of SD card storage space that I need. I have to bring more stuff. And same with producing, same with editing, it's applicable to all parts of podcasting. Don't only show up with the exact amount that you need. Not being more aggressive in the interview. This one's tricky. As a freelance producer, I now interview semi-regularly. Not too regularly. That's what semi is, dumbass. To work on shows. Typically, they're a limited series. Sometimes I get comfortable and I'm not more aggressive in said interview. And then I get put in a tricky situation where I realize, uh-oh, I've said yes to the wrong show. I'm going to leave that at that. But be aggressive in the interview. Ask them a lot of questions. Ask them exactly what is being expected of you. Try not to have surprises after you agree, after you work on the show. It's awkward for sure, but I would rather have an awkward conversation in an interview and know if I was the right fit or not, rather than say yes to a job, which I've done not only in podcasting, just in my life in general. I got hired to be a page at NBC, like Jack McBrayer on 30 Rock. And it sucked. I shouldn't have done it. I thought it was like going to be a dream job, and it was not the right job for me. It was much more for like businessy marketing people, and not really for what I was interested in. There were comedy adjacent kind of stuff, but I should have been more aggressive in the interview. And similarly, I should be more aggressive in interviews for potential podcast jobs. I should be more aggressive in interviews in podcasting, period, during a recording. So yeah, that it's hard, it's awkward, kind of like what I was talking about, like asking for help. This is kind of like a version of that. But it's important and it's not easy, but I don't know. Don't view it as confrontation. Being lazy with pitches. This unfortunately happens. You get comfortable and something works, so you just pitch in that wheelhouse and you don't really think outside the box. This kind of comes back to what I was talking about with not listening to enough shows, like outside of my little niche circle. Not just, thinking creatively, actively spending time like brainstorming. It's boring and it's hard, but once you get a great idea, it feels like the best thing in the world. So I've definitely been guilty of that. And I tried to, like I was talking about, not having extra gear, showing up with multiple ideas and not just the bare minimum. Last thing, again, I've talked about this a lot. I'm extremely lucky and fortunate to have worked with a lot of talented people. I feel like I've taken in a lot of valuable information from them. I wish I took in even more, because, you never know how long you're going to work with people, whether it be engineers, producers, publishers, any sort of department, or a host. You might have a cool experience with a host and you have no idea, like that might be the only time you ever record them. So just like take it in, live in the moment. Okay, what's next? That was just my mistakes. I'm at an hour. I thought that was going to be 35 minutes. 3 things I'm good at. I wish this was not abridged. This was very easy. No, this was very hard. The mistakes was very easy. It's hard to compliment yourself. And at least it is for me. This was weird. And I don't know, but I think it's important. Like I said, I don't want this entire thing to be like, here's everything I suck at. Good night. Because I think things that you are good at are what make people want to work with you, make people want to spend time with you. So here's 3 things I'm good at. I don't honestly remember really what I wrote. I can mostly do all parts of the job. This is a thing that I'm extremely grateful for. I wouldn't be able to have left Earwolf and work for the last 2+ years independently, mostly by myself, if I didn't study the blade, if I didn't learn from a lot of extremely talented people. This is specific to me. You don't have to be able to do all parts of the job. You can also just be really good at the one thing that you do. For me, specifically with podcasting, I like learning about all parts of the job. Like I was talking about earlier, one thing that I want to do more of is spend more time with people that have different podcasting jobs. One of the coolest things about Earwolf was being able to like get coffee or lunch with it was like one person was on the sales team, one person was in marketing, one person was in merch, one person was an engineer, one person was just an editor, one person was a producer, managing producer, VP, EP. There were so many different departments and it was really cool. I quit and it's just me and my hedgehog. So just take it in, because if you can do various jobs with podcasting, it is a really good feeling knowing that you can do top to bottom. I took Leah and I took Clippy to the vet today because he ate he found a tiny, a single line of coffee grounds on the floor. And when you're a 1-pound hedgehog, a single line of coffee grounds is like, I guess, 3 lines of cocaine. So he was up for almost 24 hours. So we took him to the vet. The vet said it wasn't the caffeine, it's mating season. So apparently Clippy's freaking revved up. So we're giving him cold baths. No, we're not doing that. Interesting day at the vet. That's another seminar. I like being able to do a lot of the different parts of this job. No shade if not. But I interviewed for a show this week, and who knows if I'll get it. It'd be cool, but no. It is what it is. But I got to have a cool moment where this host said, "Tell me about what you do for the shows you work on." And then I responded, honestly, with one word: everything. And I explained, I'm the producer, I'm the engineer, I'm the editor, I'm the publisher. I explained my pre-production, production, and post-production process. And honestly, if I don't get it, that's fine. That felt so good that whole 30 seconds was like one of the highlights, the highlight of my month. That was such a cool thing I got to do. So I'm glad I get to share it with you. You don't have to learn all parts of the job. I just like it. 2 of 3. I'm good with talent. I think this is the only reason I got hired at Earwolf. Because I was 22 and I had essentially no experience. There's no way I would get hired today if I had started at that time. I guess I was like an intern and was working with people, but in podcasting specifically, your energy, and I hate, your vibes, man, it is very important. People notice the energy you bring to your shows. It's why I like working. Again, I know John's in the chat. Big Grande is so much fun. Handbook's so much fun. Tony and Andrew are so much fun. I'm not even in the Recordings in Action Boys, but I just love editing the show because it's so much fun. I like all those people, and I like being around them. They're genuinely fun people, and I think if I wasn't also nice or fun, they wouldn't want to be around me. And I think this is, I wouldn't say an equal part of the job. Obviously, at the end of the day, if you can't do your job, it doesn't matter how nice you are. It's frustrating if you can't do your job, period. If you're nice, and I think this was probably my first 2-4 years at Earwolf, was people being patient with me because they liked me. So if you can be combined, this sounds so fucking stupid. If you can be combined, like skilled at your job and also a fun person to hang around with, someone that people are excited with, you don't have to be the life of the party. But if you're just honestly a good listener and, a fun energy, host look forward to recording with you. And it makes the job not feel like a job. It makes it just fun, frankly. And it makes this whole job feel surreal because a lot of times it's just like I feel like I'm hanging out with my friends. And yeah, your personality goes a long way. I feel like this is applicable to a lot of jobs. Again, you can't be like a nice, bad doctor. You got to be a good doctor. But yeah, your people want to work with people they like. Your energy can be a magnet. And if it's a good energy, it brings people in. And if you're bad vibes, you push people away. That's it. Also, word gets around. I had a surreal experience a couple weeks ago where someone I definitely look up to sent me a nice email about a job recommendation with some very nice words from someone who I genuinely, I don't know if I should be talking about this. I genuinely don't know who the person was, but I got this very nice message from a nice person, and it was regarding something else that someone else said. I don't know who that person was. My point is, word gets around. If you're talented, word gets around. If you're nice to be around, word gets around. If you suck at your job and you're not good to be around, word definitely gets around. So don't think everything gets buried, but yeah, people talk for better and for worse. Here's my last thing. I got creative with this title, although I think I have the least amount to say about it. The devil's in the details, and I'm the devil. Don't phone it in. Phoning it in with a podcast is very obvious. You have to be hyper aware, especially as an editor, of the work you're doing. People will notice your mistakes. People will notice your mistakes as a producer. People will notice your mistakes as a publisher. There's not really a way around it. So just I feel like I've provided a lot of examples in the last, 70 minutes about re-listening, bringing additional ideas, taking that extra hour. Because if you're messy at the job, it reflects poorly on you. And take pride in being careful and attentive at what you do. Because, like I said, people notice it. The host notice it. The host honestly notice it the least, but the listeners absolutely notice it. Your coworkers notice it. And the worst scenario is when it gets back to the host, because they will say something like, why are people talking to me about this thing? Oh, okay, you messed up. Mistakes happen. That's fine. Like I've said, I could fill 8 more days of mistake seminars, but I try to be extra attentive of the content that I'm putting out. I'm trying to be considerate of the listener, of the host, of the guest, of myself, of everyone. And it's one of my favorite things about a podcast is you can hold on releasing it. It's not what I'm doing now. It's not a Twitch live stream where if you say the wrong thing, you're kind of fucked. Take advantage of the fact that you can be hyper aware. I guess you can be very detailed on Twitch and stuff. That's kind of what I'm doing now. But I love that podcasts are pre-recorded. It honestly takes so much pressure, even though that podcasts are stressful and can be stressful. It takes a lot of pressure off. A lot of hosts that I work with will reassure the guest who might be new to podcasting before we start. And just so you know, this is not radio, obviously. So if there's anything you say that you want to, we want to cut later, that's totally cool with us. Do you know how reassuring that is to someone who is nervous about being in front of a microphone? To hear like, we can cut whatever. People are way more comfortable opening up knowing that it is not live, in my experience at least. So take advantage of that and be hyper aware of the details. Try not to phone things in. A little, like I say, a little extra effort goes a long way. That's it, gang. That is a lot of the mistakes that I've made. There's 3 things I'm good at. I'd like to end briefly. If anyone has any questions, I went significantly longer than I had planned. I'll wait a little bit. Thank you so much for watching. This is like a lot more people who normally watch my streams, which is super cool. And I'm very grateful for that. Let me see if I can make this video a little bit bigger without crashing everything. Yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. Trippy Skit asks, if you ever have a moment of being late on something, how do you handle that? If you anticipate something being late, how do you arrange things? So something I that almost feels like was going to be like too vague, too boring, frankly, of a word, similar to a collaboration. Word is like communication, but that also is an extremely important and valuable and powerful tool. Your ability to communicate. It's a thing I can botch sometimes by not communicating and then can fuck something up exactly like that. More often than not, people appreciate the communication, even if it is on something like just a heads up. I'm still waiting on this audio, or I just got the audio sent to me and I'm about to head out for dinner. I know we said the episode was going to come out at 9. It's probably going to be a little closer to 10:30. Sorry about that. We'll try to be better about it in the future. It's hard because a lot of the job can also be, not a lot, but it depends on the show, can be waiting for audio. And that dictates your schedule. You can't edit an episode if you don't have the audio. Can't edit a video if you don't have the video. So then the schedule that you have set for yourself can change based off of what tools you have. Therefore, I try to, occasionally, going back to what I was talking about with scheduling, check in with the host if things are being late, and, seeing, how can we help each other out in the future? If this is a recurring issue, what do we need to do differently? Often that's an easier conversation in person than over text. Text can kind of get specifically with an issue. It can be kind of like taken in the worst in a worse way than it needs to be. So I try to communicate like on all fronts clearly with the hosts I work with. Therefore, if there's an issue with something being late, there's not an issue with this doesn't feel like out of left field because I'm communicating with them about everything. Was that what you were asking? Or you were like, I was talking about something else, but do you? Sometimes episodes are late, and it depends on the relationship that the show has with the listeners. Some shows, it's, I think, not the end of the world if it gets released, like 12 hours later. Other shows, when it drops 20 minutes later, I'm getting DMs, just checking in, bro. Bro, you better sit down. What comedy podcasts are you listening to these days? Man, it would have been so cool if I had brought my phone. Your Kickstarter Sucks. John Mackey's new podcast. Everyone should check out Sloppy Boys. I forgot what John's show is called, but I know it's like, is it like the podcast with Brett DeMont? I know it's with Brett DeMont. I think I made it just sound like John hosts Your Kickstarter Sucks. I love Your Kickstarter Sucks. I pay for their Patreon. I love Sloppy Boys. I pay for their Patreon. I'll pull up my podcast app. Not Freedom and Get Played. I never miss a Get Played. Get Animated, their Patreon. I was the first subscriber to their Patreon. Waveform. It's a tech podcast by Marquez Brownlee, an extremely talented YouTuber who I would love to try to get on some podcast. I love that show because it has zero connection to any sort of like anything in my bubble. So it's fun to watch. They also have extremely well-produced video episodes. Insert credit, Tim Rogers Video Game Podcast. Triple Click. Yeah, like I would say a couple video game podcasts, a couple tech podcasts, a couple Drilled, Climate Town, some global warming climate podcasts, and other comedy podcasts of people that I like. I don't answer this, but behind the scenes roles and what they each do, and also the life cycle of an episode, the broad strokes of production, recording, editing, publishing, archiving, etc. Sure. I wish I had up. There's a moment in, I think it's part 1 of my big video project I did called Where the Potty At, where I write producer, engineer / editor, and one other role, publisher. And there's like a bullet point next to each of those about what they do. I would say I'm going to put a caveat. This is broad strokes what I'm saying. Each producer handles producing differently. Each engineer handles engineering differently. Each publisher handles publishing differently. So I guess I'll just say, in my experience, a producer is typically involved, and I know this sounds dumb because I'm just using the same word basically, with the production of the show. So let's take Hollywood Handbook, for example. As the producer, I will pitch Sean and Hayes premises and ideas for what we should do with the guests. I will pitch them guests that we should have on the show. I'm in charge of scheduling the recordings of said episodes. As the engineer / editor, it is then my job to record the show. Now, when we record at a studio, when we're fortunate enough to do that, luckily, they have extremely talented engineers that I'm able to work with and take that weight off my chest. They record it for me. As the editor, I then take that audio, I upload it to a software that I use called Pro Tools, and then I edit the episode there. Like I said earlier, I try to listen to it at least twice. Not every show I do that. Some shows I have listened to them 3 or 4 times. Other times it's kind of a one and done. I feel it, Publishing, for me, involves writing the episode descriptions of the show, taking that finished audio, uploading it to a publishing platform, a distribution platform. There's several different ones. Omni, Art19, Megaphone, Acast. There's a few other ones. Patreon is a publishing platform. And that then puts it in everyone's apps. And then I use Dropbox to organize and archive all of my shows in said appropriate folders. What is a podcast, dude? Let me know when you know, because I need to know. You have a set weekly day to stream and you have to cancel. Is it better to just skip that week and keep the consistent date or try to reschedule? It's up to you, really. Honestly, it depends on your week. Like if it is a thing where if I normally stream on Thursdays, thank you for the sub, by the way. Thank you for people who have been subscribing. I really appreciate it. And I'm trying to do more Twitch stuff. So thank you for the subs. I appreciate it. It truly depends on your schedule. I'll just a little behind the curtain. We were supposed to do a live stream tomorrow. For Flagrant Ones, a work conflict came up, but people are more available on Tuesday, so we're doing it on Tuesday. If it was an issue where Tuesday was a gray area as well, we'd probably just sit tight and then try to find it at another time. This probably changes for everyone. Some people might say skip entirely. I think it is completely up to your schedule. If another day is better for you that week, go for it. It seems like finding consistency though in recording days is good. How do you decide when a podcast is not salvageable? That's a great question. For example, audio sucks too hard, content is not up to snuff, etc. How do I want to word this? I did text someone in October. I said, hey, I'm sorry to say this. Don't release this. They understood. The audio from the guest was so bad, and it was fine. They're not a podcast person. They tried their best. It was truly hard to listen to, and we didn't release it. We recorded a different episode with someone else. And, I was talking about holding yourself to a higher standard with scheduling. You kind of have to hold yourself to a higher standard with audio too. I got a very nice text from my mom very recently. Very, very recently. And I have worked in podcasting for 8 years. It said, hey, Kev, I listened to a podcast today and the audio sounded so bad, period. I think I'm understanding what you do now, period. Sometimes it takes such bad audio for people to appreciate the good stuff. Yeah, it's why you kind of need to be aggressive with the recordings, with the audio. That's the thing you kind of have to be annoying about is high quality audio. It sucks. Sometimes people say they're recording and they're not, or their recording system fucks up and they don't realize it because they're in the middle of the episode. So then you have to use the backup. Typically, the backup does not sound as good as their local audio. So there are times where it is distracting in a way. I do that very rarely. Sometimes you record an episode, and it's just like, you know what? That wasn't it. And honestly, probably more people should do that. But don't do that too much though. Don't record a bunch of stuff and then not release any of it. It's a huge waste of time. And one or two every now and then, great. I'm here for you. I support it. You're holding yourself to a higher standard. Do not waste your time doing several episodes with several different people whose time you're now wasting, and then not release it. So I'm not reading any comments right now. I'm literally going one at a time. Hopefully there's not everyone's like, I disagree. What are you talking about? Rarely it's the content. Honestly, I work with hosts that are talented enough that when the content's going poorly, they're masters at spinning it to make it more entertaining. And then we just cut out the bad stuff. I'm fortunate in that I work with such talented people like that. The podcast with Brett DeMont. Thank you, John. I'm sorry I didn't have it top of mind. Everyone should go subscribe to that, though. John's character, Brett DeMont, is like one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen, and I think about it all the time. What percentage of Sean and Hayes giving you a hard time about not doing your job is real? 0%, 20%? That's a tricky question because they know I work really hard and they're very appreciative of the work that I do. Yeah, I just saw a little bump in the viewers. But I don't know. I think the three of us tease each other, and I definitely know that sometimes I set myself up for success. No, set myself up for failure. Success for them. That's the difference. I think I do a really good job, and I think they would agree. If I said this recently on Reddit, if I was truly, I hope so. I think if I was truly doing a bad job or really frustrating them, it wouldn't be funny. They wouldn't want to talk about it on mic. It would be an off mic conversation. And fortunately, we really haven't had any of those where it's like, get it together. They know I give them a lot. Because I love their show and I love working on it and they're the best guys. So, I don't know. You're asking like a very tricky question. The stuff that they make fun of me about is true. Like, I'm not going to be like, it's all bullshit. I'm a flawless producer on the show. So they love to tease me about stuff, but I don't think it's ever to a point where they're like genuinely pissed. And if they are, they should tell me. Have you started using any of the AI tools in workflow? I haven't. I know people who have. I'd like to. I think I've typed in how would you pitch Hollywood Handbook, Chat GPT, and or what shortcuts do you use in Pro Tools, Chat GPT, and stuff like that. That stuff's been interesting. I'd like to incorporate it more, but I'm also intimidated by it, and I'm constantly drowning in podcast tasks. I don't think I've had enough time to truly dive in, but maybe one day. Got a dip, but love you. Thanks so much. follow up to that question. If you like the content, but the audio isn't that good, would you run a mic out to them? Possibly. Yeah. I think, if they're nearby, I have, a shit ton of microphones. If I like the person and I'm excited about the episode, I'd be more than happy to run something out. I've definitely have done it before. It definitely was a thing that we had to do for Bang Bang, early COVID, and to ensure that people had good sounding microphones. I don't know. I mean, people aren't going to like to hear this, but a voice memo, it sounds pretty good. I've done a lot of recordings making voice memos sound usable. Because once again, I learned from talented people. Something for Rolly Hog. You do a great job of teeing them up. I like teeing them up. They're really funny. I feel like that was one of the most real I ever thought it was. Awesome answer, King. Gotta go. Thank you. All right, that's everyone. Cool. Wow, an hour, 90 minutes on the dot. This was really cool. What am I talking about next week? 5 things I wish someone told me before choosing this as a career. I have 4 of them locked in, and I'm really excited to talk about those. And this is really fun. I really, really enjoy talking about podcasts. I love answering your questions and giving you a bunch of kind of behind the scenes tips about podcasting and working in podcasting. But also, like I said, and I got to stop saying this because it kind of sounds like I'm actually being way more clever. But I do think a lot of this is applicable to other jobs. And so even though like I'll be talking about 5 things I wish I knew, I don't know. I think that people in other lines of work might find bits and pieces applicable. The doctors specifically, mostly the doctors, were all the same. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. This was really exciting and nerve-wracking, but you guys were all so supportive and cool and made this a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So thanks so much. Have a great night. I'll see everyone next Thursday at the same time. Have a good one.